Decisions, decisions, decisions. Welcome to episode 1990. This is a 10th episode show, and our guests today, we've got two authors of the book Wise Decisions. So we're going to talk about that today, and I think you'll find this interview to be very, very valuable because it is such an important topic to be able to make good decisions, especially when it comes to your investments, and especially during times like these, because we are in a time of uncertainty, we are in a time of turmoil, and people tend to make bad decisions when they are in times like these. So very, very important topic we're going to discuss here in just a few moments. If you do not want to suffer from a cascade of poor decision-making during fatigue, if you want to channel your inner Yoda, remember Star Trek, or no, Star Wars, sorry, and make that serve you to be a good decision maker, and make sure you're dealing with and managing the voices inside your head that are influencing your decisions, the gatekeepers. You're protecting your inner core, your principles, to make sure that you are making good decisions, whether it comes to investing, parenting, or any other aspect of life. Wise decisions are incredibly important. And this is a science-based approach to making better decisions. It's not anecdotal, it's very empirical, and I think you'll get a lot out of that. You know, we're all telling ourselves stories all the time, and these stories that we have influence our decisions. They cause us to bring our past into the future, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad, so we'll dig into that today. But speaking of decisions, we have got a lender out there in the world who is, of course, talking his own book. And isn't it interesting how people who don't have a way to compete like to bash people that have something unique that they don't have and they can't offer? And I just found this really interesting when it comes to our 100% financing offer. We've got these basically people that are just lying because they don't have the offer, right? So they're saying, oh, this is a bad offer, this is a bad offer, because they don't have it, they can't sell it, right? We've got this special relationship. A lot of you attended our Zoom meeting on that topic, and if you didn't and you missed it, reach out to your investment counselor through jasonhartman.com and get a link to the recording of that Zoom meeting, because it was really valuable. And look, I just want to say, this isn't for everybody, just like any loan program is not for everybody. But what bugs me is the scumbags out there who are not offering this unique program are saying, oh, it's a terrible program. They're ranting about it and going on, because they don't have it. They don't offer it. This program is really, really advantageous for some people. I'll give you an example. So I was meeting on a one-on-one session with one of our mentoring clients, and this is a couple that is doing very well, medical industry. I'm sure they're listening. Hi, you know who you are. And I was kind of trying to talk them out of the 100% financing because they don't need it. They have a lot of capital with which to invest. But actually, he brought up a very good point. Even though they have very high income and very large amount of capital, because one person in the couple is a real estate professional, a designation that you really want to get if you can, they can take advantage of a cost segregation analysis and massive accelerated depreciation. And this is one of the reasons the rich get richer, folks. Is that, and I've been looking at this myself in terms of buying a toy. Now, I have purchased 2 airplanes in my lifetime, and I've been thinking about purchasing a third one. And, you know, how do you rationalize buying an item that is expensive and it depreciates? Well, I'll tell you how you do it. With IRS accelerated depreciation. It can really make you want to buy a toy. So you can finance an aircraft, for example, over 20 years. And you can get all of that tax deduction in the year you buy it. Now, they have reduced this to only 80%, but there is a way that you can get 100%. So it's really, even though it is an expense and it is a toy, it really, if it is a business tool, can become actually a pretty good investment in quotes, okay? Now, look, we love income property. That's even better. And so if you're using 100% financing and can accelerate the depreciation tax deduction that you can take advantage of, this is an incredible deal. It is just nothing short of incredible. You do pay a bit of a premium on the interest rate, but still, arguably, very arguably, the rate is below the rate of real inflation and even below the rate of official inflation, depending on when you look, okay? You do pay a premium in the interest rate, but the premium is not above a negative interest rate basis. So you're still getting paid to borrow and you're renting the property. Effectively, what you're doing is nothing more than deferring your down payment. I mean, would you rather pay the down payment on a property all up front today, or would you rather spread the down payment over, say, 3 years? Well, I think that answer is pretty darn obvious for most people. They would rather spread it over 3 years. The only difference in this is, number one, you're limited to 5 properties. You can only do 5 on this program. And number two, of course, your risk is much lower and the lender's risk is higher. So they're charging a bit of a premium on the interest rate. But the premium really isn't that much, considering that you get to finance the down payment over, depending on the property and the deal, say 3 years for argument's sake. Okay, it might be 3.5 years. It kind of depends a little bit. Let's use that round number and say you're financing it over about 3 years, right? So you do this, you take all the benefits today, you get the inflation-induced debt destruction, and remember, with zero down, you get 20% more or 25% more that you're not using of inflation-induced debt destruction. And you're borrowing at negative interest rates, and for the most part, the tenant is paying the debt. The part of the debt they will not pay for you, I mean, unless you can get a tenant to pay really extra rent, and you could do that, by the way, if you attended our meeting with Ron LeGrand and you do a lease purchase for that tenant, you could potentially get that tenant to pay that full deferred down payment. But the part they're not going to pay is the deferred down payment. You're going to pay for that. And that interest rate premium that you're paying, which of course is tax deductible for anybody because the interest is always tax deductible, right? It goes into your net, right? And if you're paying that over 3 years or so, you are getting the advantage of additional tax deduction, additional inflation-induced debt destruction, and if you can qualify for it and you do cost segregation, you're getting to move so much of that depreciation forward and take advantage of it very, very quickly. This deal rocks. It is a phenomenal deal. In fact, it is so good for some people, not for everybody, but it is so good that it deserves sound effects. There you go. So look, this wise decision, which is the topic of today's 10th episode show, where we discuss something that is not of mostly financial interest, it's mostly of general interest, is a good thing to think about today, right? Because it is a very wise decision for the right situation and the right people. Absolutely great decision. But again, limited to only 5 properties. If you want to check out that Zoom meeting, just contact one of your investment counselors or one of our investment counselors. If you have an investment counselor, you know who they are, through jasonhartman.com, or contact them directly if you are connected with them already. All right, let's get into our interview about wise decisions, a science-based approach to making better choices. Here we go. Decisions, decisions, decisions. One of the most important things in life. And today we're going to talk about making wise decisions. And we have the authors of a book entitled Wise Decisions, a science-based approach to making better choices. And great to bring you Dr. Jim Loehr and Dr. Sheila Ohlsson Walker. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Jason. Great to be with you.
It's good to have you. As you were saying off air, Jim, I think you were saying this, it's amazing that such an important topic is not taught in school. I mean, decisions, we're making them every day, maybe thousands of times a day, literally small decisions. How is that possible that there's no instruction on this?
That's precisely why Sheila and I have written a book. We looked at the science of all this and what's actually happening in the real world. There's probably no more important competency that we possess as human beings than this ability to make good choices and wise choices. The problem is no one teaches it. Parents don't know how to teach it. It's not taught in elementary school or grade school or high school or junior high. It's not taught in colleges for the most part. It's not taught in graduate schools. It's not even taught in that many corporate universities. So we decided to really try to put something together that was very practical and research science-based that can help people understand this very, very important area that actually determines the outcome of our lives, most certainly.
Yeah, it sure does. So, Sheila, what is the science behind decisions? This is not something that is just intuitive, like you can be a good, make decisions from your viscera. It's just gut instinct, right? Or maybe there is an element of that. What's the science behind decision making?
Well, it's a learned skill, like anything else. We human beings are a 365-day a year, 24/7 work in process through the science of epigenetics, with nurture shaping nature all the way along, shaping our genetics. Typically, children learn decision-making from their parents. And there's this wonderful quote, "Don't worry that your children aren't listening to you, worry that they're always watching you." Modeling is powerful. And as Jim said, because we haven't taken time to unpack how we make decisions, just sort of make them, and we use some combination of gut feel and emotion and what's happening at the time and previous experience. There's not a kind of a discrete process that we've put in place to make decisions. And this is what Jim and I tried to do, using a grounding of science and developmental science, but also aligning our decisions and going through processes. There's a workbook in the book to really think about who we are, how we want to show up in life, the things that are the very most important to us, and then aligning our decisions with those basic core values and principles. And on the school element, I'm actually helping teach a class in a nearby school where two of our three sons are at school, to high school juniors and seniors with the book as curriculum. And that has been extraordinarily powerful. As sensitive period in development is kind of childhood, adolescence, where the brain is much more malleable and open to forming habits that last for life, that just fly under the radar screen. They just become automatic habit by repetition. And so giving young people the chance to think through some of these basic principles early on in life has been incredibly powerful. But it's not, broadly speaking, it's not taught anywhere, even to adults.
Yeah, and this can be for either one of you, but what is the actual science of making a decision? Let's dig into that if we can.
I don't know how many of our listeners will be aware of Daniel Kahneman's work as a brilliant psychologist. The whole idea here is our neuroprocessor can operate in two ways. One, very, very quickly, almost instinctively. We don't even think about it. It's unconscious. And the other one is very deliberate, intentional. And when we look at the science, we realize that we tend to make hundreds, maybe thousands of decisions in a given day, most of which are completely automatic and unconscious. They just happen. We don't reflect on them. But we've learned that the most important decisions that people make are those that are given a pause between whatever the stimulus was and the response, and you deliberate. And the book really talks about how that deliberation process should take place. We have a cognitive brain in this cortex and neocortex. We have an emotional brain. We have this intuitive part of us. And we also have a heart. What's your heart? The compassion index, the empathy index. How does that actually impact the right decision here? So we developed this notion of YODA. YODA stands for Your Own Decision Advisor. And it's really important for YODA to be equipped with the right stuff to contemplate, to reflect on, to make the best decisions possible. And that's what a lot of the book is about. It's not the YODA of Star Wars, but if you equip your own personal advisor with the right information for making really the critical decisions, you're much less likely to make decisions that can change the course of your life in a tragic way for maybe years, decades, maybe for your entire life.
Jim talked about the pause, the power of the pause. And when we are, it really all starts with creating awareness that we are making a decision. And there are big decisions and little decisions. And the little decisions all kind of compound into the big decisions. And it all starts with our health, our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health, spiritual being our higher order beliefs and so forth. But when we're aware we're making a decision and stop to think about what we want to do, we have the opportunity to act rather than react. And 100% of the time, those are just, generally speaking, always better choices. And I think it's important to note that we can't expect ourselves to be perfect. We're human, we're flawed. You know, we may come into a situation where we've had several stressful things happen beforehand, and we may make a poor decision, a little one or a big one. But there is always a chance to course correct. And with me as thinking really about child development, I think sharing with our children, not only modeling for our children the, taking a pause to really think about decisions, talk about decisions, but also when we as adults make a poor decision, talking about that too, and unpacking that with them. I think the more that we can be human and kind of open up Pandora's box to help them understand what's happening on the inside, the better it is for them to really think about what their own process is and how they can do the best that they can do with what they have.
In the book, you talk about moving from novice to expert by creating a neural pathway, a neural superhighway. How do you do that when it comes to the subject of wise decisions?
That's all the repetition. Habit formation, automaticity comes with practice, just like anything else, just like building our biceps in the gym or hitting a forehand on the tennis court. So when we learn something new, we form a new neural pathway. It's not a fortified or strong neural pathway. It's a weak connection in the beginning.
Right.
The more that we practice, the more that lane opens up. Basically, it becomes a more powerful and automated connection over time. And that's
right. So this is true though of good and bad habits, though.
Good
right?
and bad, exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about. Yeah.
So how do we create the first good one, I guess? Or maybe you kind of alluded to that already. I don't know, but we've got to create that pathway first and then use it over and over so it gets more ingrained, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea here is that as human beings, we have the ability to be pretty much on automatic, and we are going to develop habit structures that may or may not serve us unless we use intentional, thoughtful deliberation in determining what are the habits we really want to have that can preload our YODA and eventually become representative of how we make big and important decisions. So what's really interesting is that there's a whole wealth of research on what we call cognitive biases. They are basically unconscious, and they can really undermine our ability to make good choices. And that always occurs in the automatic mode, because automatic means you're not conscious in what you're doing. But we have this ability to be reflective, to have conscious reflection. And that can stop this in an instant. You begin to realize, wait a minute, I'm making stuff up here. This is a bad story. This is, as we've said many times before, the brain is a fiction-making machine. And if we don't call it out And the only way you call it out is say, wait a minute, you have to stop and say, wait a minute, that is not how I want to make a decision. I can see what I'm doing here, and I'm going to actually be much more careful about the logic I use, the emotions I'm willing to entertain during this decision. If I'm tired, if my health is compromised, I may need to postpone this decision because all of that may interfere with my ability to actually make the best choice in this moment.
On that note, I'd love to alley-oop that on the humans as storytellers, and that's just how we've evolved over time. We make up stories in our minds, often that suit the circumstances that we want to, the decisions we want to make in the first place. And so really taking time to unpack what those things are. And in the book, we take readers through a 7-lens process of looking at a decision. These are the larger decisions through different lenses and different angles, including, our best selves, our YODA code, your own decision advisor code, which is, 5 or 6 words that describe us and how we want to be remembered by those who know us the best and love us the most. And also looking down the chronological timeline. Will I be happy with this decision in a week, in a month, in a year, in a decade? Those elements. And so back to your question about wiring up and the neural superhighway, we have the workbook element of our book of Wise Decisions is there because writing things down is just, it draws on a wholly different set of cognitive resources. It engages the default mode network, the brain kind of network that really connects the dots. It helps us think more deeply about the elements of making a good decision. And the workbook element is in there so that people can take time and think and write down, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? Who are those people that I seek to emulate in terms of their decision-making processes? And how can I fine-tune my own process to be my very best self and walk my talk?
Yeah,
It's really important. Just one other real quick point here is that we love being on automatic mode because it's less energy demanding.
sure.
We don't have that much energy. And so the more we have to think about things, the more deliberate, intentional, the more we get tired. It's fatiguing. So we just love to go through. It's called decision fatigue. Yeah, I don't want to make any more decisions that I have to think a lot about. I just want to make them and get on with my life. But that's where we get into trouble. And we need to recognize that to have a great life, you're going to have to invest energy in the decisions you make, or you can make tragic ones for yourself and all those you care about.
Yeah. It's interesting, that we have to realize that, number one, our brain takes an awful lot of energy. It's a big energy consumer in our physical bodies, and it's a miser. It wants to be, it's like your car, you can put your car on economy mode. That's the way it wants to run all the time.
100%.
It doesn't want to run in
100%.
sports car mode.
Exactly.
So we have to kind of force it to. But let's just wrap up with the 8-step training program, if you would. What are those 8 steps to making better decisions?
The 7-lens process.
Well, he was asking about the 8 steps, right?
Well, maybe the 7 lens is more important. So whatever you feel is more important.
Okay.
You go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say the 8 steps. You begin with a journal. Go out and buy a journal and begin to make a commitment to do better on your decision making, and to take 2 weeks and really understand what kind of advice your YODA is giving you throughout the day. You need to really tune into this YODA voice. And so often it's not a good advisor. And we need to clean that up. And you want that YODA voice to be the voice of, someone that you would really want to give to someone that you would really care about. It's really important that you understand the power broker in your life is that voice that no one else hears. And then we have you write a summary of what you learned in that 2-week period. What kind of coach are you to yourself, particularly when it comes to decision making? And you have to say, wait a minute, am I happy with this voice that really influences all my decisions? If you are happy, you probably don't have to go a whole lot further. But most people say, wait a minute, I need some serious work here. And then you decide to go into the training, and then you, every single day for a period of 90 days, you start training your YODA, that voice that is such an important advisor to you, and to really think, what is the best use of my energy here in making sure that my decisions are the best and the advice I'm giving myself is absolutely the best. And we actually have you recognize that even speaking to yourself, every iPhone has a voice memo capability. And you actually coach yourself with your own public voice, listening to it after you put that on a voice memo. And that also is a great coach for you to get that voice right. And then at the end, you start realizing that I have to be conscious, a lot more deliberate in all the decisions I make for this period. And all of a sudden, you see the opportunities that come that never had come before, that you were not aware of, and that suddenly you're more in control of your day because you are assuming responsibility, and your advisor, the one closest to you, is making very, very good decisions and recommendations on how you should proceed on all these issues that really matter.
Sheila, anything to add to that?
Well said. That sums it up. But the only thing that I would reiterate is that we are a work in process as human beings. And the science of epigenetics tells us that the more we practice, the more we upload these intentional thoughts and behaviors, the more they become a part of just who we are and how we show up from a habitual standpoint. And it's just an incredibly optimistic story that science tells us about what can happen when we deploy our energy towards these kinds of things that matter most. Mm-hmm. And for our children, when we can help them upload some of these basic processes early on, these are dividends for life for our young people.
Actually, one more thing before you go, Sheila. You mentioned epigenetics a couple times, and I know that's your field of study. And it's a fascinating thing, not to be confused with genetics, right? Where we can actually control our DNA expression, right? Is that what that means?
Right. Epigenetics actually means above genetics. We are all born with a certain, with our own DNA, half mother, half father. But starting from in conception, nurture shapes nature, the biochemistry and so forth, maternal stress, they shape how genes are read, expressed, and transcribed in utero, in young people, and later on. All of our life experiences, how we sleep, what we eat, our friend group, exposure to stress, exercise, all of these things shape how our genes are read and expressed and transcribed. And that is epigenetics. And that's how nurture shapes nature across life.
And that's our hope, that if we have some genetic issues that need to be, we can actually alter the expression of those with training. And that's the beauty of epigenetic science.
Right. But one of the really interesting things about epigenetics, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that as you develop as a human, you actually, and then if you have children, you actually pass those traits that you develop, not traits that were passed to you, down to your offspring, right?
Right. There's multi-generational transmission of epigenetic patterns. We've seen this in the trauma literature, but it works both ways, on the upside and the downside. But it's very clear that those are passed along as well. But then there's the modeling piece from a parent standpoint of those traits and behaviors we've intentionally uploaded for ourselves and learned and developed that our children see. So it amplifies that epigenetic effect into the next generation as well. Yeah. So important to know what we want to upload and what we want to basically snuff out and focus there.
Yeah,
and that's for better or worse, and
right.
It works both ways.
Yeah, you're actually writing on the hard drive of future generations.
100%. That's a great way of thinking about it.
That's interesting. But you're only doing it pre-birth, right? You're not you can't do that after the children are born. Then it's their own epigenetics.
Then it's
right?
their own epigenetics.
Yeah.
Yeah, but genes, I mean, they, across development, genes come online in certain areas of the body and the brain, at certain developmental time points. The body is this, incredible symphony of a work in process. So genes turn off and on and are over or underexpressed based on epigenetic experiences. But yes, I mean, the prenatal period of time, the genes that they inherit, those are the genes that we're passing along to them. But then in utero, maternal lifestyle, maternal stress, the things that moms are doing early on, those shape gene expression patterns. And then, home and school environment across time, and where the children actually spend time in their lives.
Yeah, and this is why identical twins are not the same.
They're never 100% the same, but generally speaking, they always correlate more highly than fraternal twins. Across time. Even identical twins raised apart, they correlate highly, but they're never 100% similar. And that epigenetic differentiation begins when the egg splits. That's when it begins. One twin maybe gets a oversupply of the blood. They're fed differently,
or stress hormones
or stress hormones or what have you. But that differentiation, we're all as unique as a snowflake, in terms of who we are as human beings.
Right. And it really is a great stake in the ground when you realize that you can impact not just your generation, not just yourself, but future generations. Let's say you have had a very aggressive, almost violent tendency, and you really want to work on taming that, becoming more, so to speak, domesticated. You actually can make that domestication process very, very powerful force in your life. And once you have altered the environment of that chemistry, let's say, which might be testosterone centered, that now you find yourself less aggressive and less violent. And that can be altered for the offspring that follow you. So, because when you make changes, they're not just one generation, they can be multi-generation transcribed in sense in the genetic makeup.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating area. And, when we look at cloning, a clone is not the same, right? Like Barbara Streisand cloned her dog, and it's not the same dog.
Experience can never be exactly the same. Here's a really important thing. Perception is in the eye of the beholder. Reality is in the eye of the beholder. So even if, two identical twins experience an exact same situation, they may not process it differently based on other life experiences. Yeah. Our experiences are always shaping who we are, how we feel, what we do. Those rumination processes, that inner voice that we have, those shape the inside, which goes in turn to shape the outside. So even clones, as you said, are not exactly the same. And I think that's so important to know, just to really to dispel this nature versus nurture debate. It's nature via nurture. It is both across time. And there's a tremendous amount of potential to optimize our human capacity throughout life.
Yeah, that's why
the genetics may be identical, but the environment is never identical, and your interpretation of the environment is never identical. Yeah. And that is, in fact, why we see differentiation between identical twins.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all have our own agency, and we are responsible for using that. Jim and Sheila, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to give out a website?
I'm Sheila, OhlssonWalker.com.
Jim-Loehr, Loehr.com. And I'm very active, and so is Sheila, on LinkedIn. And you can find us, and we hope you find great value in the book. We were riveted in writing it. This is my 18th book, and I really enjoyed writing this with Sheila. She's a brilliant and wonderful scientist.
It's Excellent. My first, and I'm grateful as well.
Well, thank you both for bringing us wise decisions.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jason, for having us.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Take care.